computer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Clear Your Path podcast. I am delighted to have you all on board. Welcome to my special guest, Eva Pecze. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She did actually tell me how to pronounce it literally 1 minute ago, but yeah, it's not a common name.
Right.
Yeah, and Pecze. Pecze?
Pecze, yeah.
Pecze. Okay, all right. So, yeah, my name's Dan Tchaikovsky. On this show, we talk about letting go. We share stories of letting go. You know, the guests have some amazing stories. I've already interviewed a couple of really amazing guests. And now we're going to share, Eva's going to share her story, and we're going to talk a bit about letting go as we do, and literally what it's all about. So Eva, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Who are you, where you're from, and yeah, just tell us your letting go story. So I'll ask you questions anyway, so we'll just go with the flow.
Okay, first of all, I would tell you that basically coming here, it was already an act of letting go, because I had to let go of my fear of public speaking.
Okay.
Fear of going on a podcast. Yeah, but you just have to let go and jump on it, right?
Yeah. Is it your first time on a podcast, actually?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Congratulations then.
I told you I was scared, and I warned you that you should be scared as well.
And I'm wondering why that is the case. So there you go. So Eva, so yeah, tell us where are you from originally?
I'm from Hungary.
From Hungary. Okay, right. And tell us a little bit about what you do actually, and you know, what do you help people with?
Okay. Well, I moved here to the UK 10 years ago, and I became a therapist about 6-7 years ago. But it started from my really personal reasons, actually. Originally, I studied fine art in Budapest. I have got 2 master degrees in art, and I'm a painting restorer. But now Now I feel like actually what I do is I restore people who have been through burnout and depression, anxiety. Yeah, so last year I founded a clinic with my friend, Erika Kiss. She's also a therapist, and it's called Burnout Clinic, and I'm co-founder of that.
Yeah. And you, from what I've seen from the website, there's lots of people in relaxed positions. They look like they're getting head massages, but is that true, or what is it?
Well, it is not a massage, actually. What we provide is something called access bars. It's not a massage. It's just a very gentle touch on 32 points on the head. And when you hold your fingers there is actually an energy bar generated between the fingers, and that affects the brain in such a way that it would improve your brain coherence.
Okay, all right. So is that the brain coherence, sort of heart-brain coherence, or is it just a brain coherence, or what would actually explain what you mean by coherence?
Well, it just basically wherever your brain has been overactive before, it changes, and your brain goes through such a change, what the neurofeedback studies showed. Basically, it's like you would receive 100 hours of meditation in one go.
Oh, nice.
That's how your brain map changes in a 90-minute session. So for me, it's the ultimate way of letting go.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds like a really good shortcut that maybe some of us would love. And we don't want to spend hours meditating. Instead, we want to, do something a little bit more, quicker or more efficient, should I say. So yeah, so as you know, this is about letting go. So we're going to go back to you, what you do a bit later, but tell us how you really got started with this. You know, what's the main thing that happened for you, and yeah, how you got started on this journey?
Mm. Well, when I was 19, my younger brother, who is 3.5 years younger than me, so he was 16 that time, he went crazy from one day to the other. And basically, I was on a school trip abroad that time, and I just got a phone call from my parents. And after I arrived back to Hungary, I went straight to the hospital, and my brother didn't recognize me. He actually called me doctor. And it's just so scary, but somebody is actually loses their mind. You don't know what to do, and you can see that even the doctors, they don't really have a clue what's going on in there, you know. So they would stuff you with medication and experiment with you, try a different medication which would cause different side effects, and you would receive another medication for the side effect, and it's just a never-ending story.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge blow for my whole family. And first, we were told that it was paranoid schizophrenia. And then 5 years later, they changed the diagnosis and they said, oh, it is just bipolar depression. Well, doesn't really matter how you call it, because these are just labels. And at the end of the day, if someone suffers, doesn't matter how you label it. So for 12 years, my brother was in and out of psychiatry. He had a relapse at least every couple of years. And every time he had a relapse, it was so severe that he was locked inside the psychiatry for at least a couple of months. And basically, this event just changed my whole family. We used to be a normal family.
Mm-hmm.
We followed the instructions of the doctors, you know. We did everything we could, but after a while, when you are just very desperate, you open up and you would try anything, literally anything. And we spend all of our money on different healers, doctors, medication. And 10 years later, I heard about access bars, and that actually helped my brother. So he has been stable for 4 years now, which I'm really grateful for. And it just changed my life, really. So
Okay.
I had to let go of my my master degrees, and I had to let go of my career, because I realized that I grew so passionate about mental health and helping people with anxiety, depression, that I realized that it gives me so much more joy than actually restoration would give me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was hard to face, actually, the judgment of the people. So
In what respect?
When you put so much effort into your education and so many years, and people saw my profession as something which is very rare. And
The restoration work, yes.
yes, and everybody was so impressed by it. I'm from a tiny village, so people were like cheering for me from the village, you know. People were cheering for me from my secondary school. I was the first in my school history who got into that university, which is quite hard to get into. And yeah, so I felt like so much pressure so much expectations from my family and my peers and my professors from the university, that I would continue with what I have been doing before, you know. And even yourself, when you invested so much time and so much studying, it's just hard to let go sometimes. Yeah, but it was also access bars that helped me with that.
Are you saying access bars?
Access bars, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to explain a little bit more about that.
Okay.
But yeah, go on.
It's a strange name. It's a strange name. It comes from access consciousness. Basically, this helps you to raise your level of consciousness. So that's where the access part is coming from. And bars, because of the energy bars generated between the fingers, that affects the brain. Yeah.
Bringing it into coherence.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So this is my story, really.
Okay. And with regards to what access bars itself, how did you discover it? Was it randomly? Was it something that was introduced to you, or did someone recommend it?
Yes, a friend of mine recommended it to me. So I used to do lots of self-hypnosis and visualization, Silva method. I don't know whether you know Silva method.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I was really into that, and I felt like I wanted to help people. And I was hesitating becoming an instructor for children in Silva method. And I told about it to a friend of mine, and she said, like, oh, just leave it. I came across something recently which is even better. And she told me it's called access bars. I didn't really have a clue what it was, but I was so drawn to it that I booked my ticket and I went to Budapest and I learned it there because I wanted to learn it on my mother tongue. Yeah, but it comes from the US. It's about 35 years old modality, and it's still not very well known in the UK, although it's spreading worldwide very fast.
Right. Okay. And who was it? Can you tell us a little bit of history behind it? How it was discovered, or how? Yeah.
Well, it was established by a man from Texas. His name is Gary Douglas. And basically, he just received a download of information about the points. He was in a massage session with a friend of his, and he just knew where to touch the head, and it works. I know it sounds like unbelievable for for some people, but I find it amazing that actually just by hugging each other and connecting with our bodies changes our heart rate, changes our blood pressure. So if you keep a hug for 20 minutes, it would actually start literally change the other person's chemistry and your own chemistry. And I find it so
especially it depends on who you hug.
Yes, other chemical things can switch on as well.
Yeah. No. Wow, that's fascinating. Actually, I didn't know that keeping a hug for 20 minutes would.
20 seconds. Sorry, did I say minutes?
Yeah, you said 20 minutes. Yeah, 20
no,
seconds.
Sorry.
Okay, 20 seconds. I was like, 20 seconds. 20 minutes is a long time to hug someone.
No. I think it is 20 seconds.
Okay, all right.
Definitely not 20 minutes.
I
That's
know,
gonna end up
thinking,
with
that's
something
a long
else.
time. Yeah. But no, that's great. And so with regards to the letting go aspect in your own personal life, was there, apart from letting go of the stuff external to you, what internal stuff did you have to let go of? You know, what kind of fears did you have to let go of, or anxieties, or what came up for you during this time, especially seeing your brother, the way and also how old was he when he got diagnosed, when this incident happened? So he's quite young then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it happened without any kind of previous signal, you know. He was an absolutely normal teenager. He was like doing well at school. There was no problem with him. He was just very, very quiet, and he just lost it from one day to the other. So it's quite scary.
And what came up for you when you saw him like that? You know, what was the emotions and the feelings that surfaced for you?
Well, if I had to choose one, it would be despair. It's just so much despair that you don't know what the options are there to help, you know? Because if someone is diagnosed with a physical problem, you would know what you can do for them to help them. But when it comes to the mind, it's just like absolutely scary, and you don't know what to do. Yeah. And during the years, actually, I kind of developed PTSD. Because after the university, I actually moved back to my village. I wanted to be there for my family. And I thought, if nothing else, I can cheer them up with my sense of humor and positivity. But after a couple of years, I realized that it was like jogging on quicksand, and I was going down the drain as well. And I came to visit a couple of friends here in the UK, and I decided to move. And every time when my phone rang in an unusual time, too early in the morning or too late in the evening, and it said "Mom," I literally, my heart started to go like, having palpitations, you know. So I was just so much in fear of my brother having a relapse again. So sometimes I felt like I cannot go through it again and again and again. Because every time he got released from the hospital, he was like a zombie. He couldn't actually close his mouth. It was constantly open. His saliva was drooling, you know. And it was so much shame attached to this because he was stigmatized. They were talking about him in the village, that he went crazy. And just so much emotions getting together, you know, like a big bundle of emotions. And I had to let go of my guilt, for example, for moving away. It was a tremendous amount of guilt, but I had to, now I can see that it was actually a vital move for my sake. I had to do it. Yeah.
And for you, what process did you use? Was it a conscious process you used to let go of the guilt, or was it just something that you had a mental process? What was the steps you took to let go of your guilt?
Well, actually, I have you heard of family constellation?
Yeah.
So I went to a family constellation. I wanted to have my brother's issue that time as well, but the constellation didn't really give me a revolution or resolution, sorry. But it showed me, it just broke free my amount of guilt. So after that session, I was like crying for 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Huge
But
release then.
it was the way of letting go of that, facing that amount of guilt and just flooding it out, you know.
Yeah. So what do you think was it in the session that actually triggered or opened up the reservoir of guilt to flow out and all the grief around it? What do you think it was?
Well, family constellation basically visibly shows you what's going on in your family dynamics. And you are sitting there outside and looking at the people who are representing your family members, and you just see visually what's happening there, what are the dynamics. And when you actually looking at it from the outside and see that whatever you do, you cannot help more, is just, again, like I had to let go of my need to sacrifice myself, because it showed me that doesn't matter what I do, I cannot do more. So
Okay.
yeah, that was like a trigger that made my guilt pour out as well.
So it was kind of like objectively stepping out and observing the whole family dynamic that helped you see that you were pretty much doing the best that you could in that moment.
Yes.
And in that realization allowed all of this guilt and grief to be let go of.
Yeah, so I was at that point, I have been already warned by so many helpers around us, you know, and they told me that, look, you have been a great sister, you have done everything that you could, you cannot do anything more, which was really hard to accept. But I think actually family constellation was a slap in my face, but it showed me so clearly that really in that moment there was nothing more I could do. And it helped me to let go. It was a painful way of doing it, but a very effective way. And I'm grateful that it happened, you know.
Did you do it specifically for letting go, or was it something that you done it because you wanted to understand the situation a bit better? What was your motivation behind doing family constellations?
Well, the motivation was absolutely to help my brother. And I wasn't really thinking about myself.
Yeah.
I think that was the energy that the facilitator picked up on as well. And he was quite harsh with me. And he told me, like, you cannot choose instead of your brother.
You say that again, you cannot.
You cannot choose for somebody else.
Right, okay.
You cannot choose for him to choose to come out of in the situation he is in. because
Right.
you don't have the power to choose instead of somebody else. Doesn't matter how good intention you have and how much love it comes from.
Yeah.
You cannot choose for somebody else. And this is another point I had to let go too, because basically when I learned access bars, I could feel that it would help my brother. I knew that this was the tool that actually could create the change that we have been looking for, the whole family was looking for. And I went home triumphantly for Christmas, to Hungary to visit them. And I offered him a session and he received one and he said, well, I didn't feel anything and I don't want to have another one. And he refused it. He refused it. And I was so pissed off,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I couldn't do anything. And I had to wait for a couple of years. And he went back to the psychiatry 2 more times with 2 more relapses. And then he opened up.
Well, he opened up to
receive it.
To receive it. In order for him to open up, did you need to shift at all, or was it just he just at one time he said, "Okay, Eva, I need to do this," or how did that happen? How did he open up to receive it?
Well, I was manipulating him as much as I could.
Brother and sister dynamic there.
Well, it was for everybody's sake, really,
So what did you say to him then?
Okay, that's a longer story. So
that was yeah, go on.
Basically, in the meanwhile, our father died. I think he just couldn't take more stress,
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I know that some people find it outrageous that I'm smiling in the meanwhile, but I'm quite comfortable with death.
Yeah, okay.
And I believe in reincarnation, so I don't think this is such a big deal.
Yeah.
Just opening up a new chapter. Anyway, so my brother had a relapse on the anniversary of our father's death. And I went home and he was absolutely psychotic. And I used all of my facilitator tools to verbally, to facilitate him every day. But he was like a yo-yo. He came out a little bit of the psychotic episode and he went back. And I knew that if I come back to London and I leave my mother with him, because we tried to avoid the hospitalization, because every time he went back to the hospital, he actually came home with more trauma, funny enough. Hungarian psychiatries are not the most cheerful places to be. I guess it's everywhere like that, but I haven't experienced the English ones yet, and hopefully I won't. So I decided to bring him with me to England while he was in full psychosis. So we were standing in the terminal in Košice and in Slovakia, close to my village. And my brother was moving around like this and hitting his head and talking to invisible people. So I was actually trying to position myself in a way that people would believe that he was talking to me. I wasn't sure whether they would actually let us board the plane. But I thought if I bring him here, he could receive from my friends. And I don't know, I was just hoping that his condition would change. And and I brought him here. And the journey was so stressful that I always tell my friends if I had to actually smuggle cocaine in my butt, that would have been less stressful than
really, wow,
than traveling with him. And we arrived here, and the situation didn't change actually. But there was one night. So you're asking me like, what was the point when he changed and he opened up?
Yeah.
I used to work in Harley Street that time in a clinic, and one evening I came home from work and my boyfriend babysat my brother in the meanwhile. And I could see that he was back in full psychotic stage, and he looked at me with such a challenge in his eyes. So sarcastic, and he lifted his shoes up. He was looking at me like this, showing me his shoes. He put them up, put his jacket on, and he left. And we were basically locking the door all the time, that he wouldn't go outside and get lost. And I reached that point when I thought, like, I have been doing this for 12 years and I cannot go on like this anymore. And I let him go.
You let him go what, outside?
Yes, I let him go, and I was looking at him from the window, walking through the car park and getting lost. And half an hour later, my whole body went shaking, and I just thought, like, oh my God, what am I going to tell our mother? I just let my brother go to get lost in London. But I was in such a state, seriously. So I was hiding the knives in the night, because I didn't know whether he would actually do something dangerous to himself, you know. So I was already such a nerve wreck myself that I just let him go, because I thought something has to change here, and that I wasn't really thinking. But anyway, he went, and then half an hour later, I jumped on my bicycle. I tried to find him, but I couldn't. Then my boyfriend went with the car, and we couldn't find him. 3 hours later, I called the police. I gave them a description. I was absolutely so stressed, and I realized it was the coldest night I experienced in England. He had a very thin jacket on. He didn't have ID. He didn't have phone. He didn't have money or an Oyster card, anything with him. And at 1 o'clock in the night, I got a phone call from an Indian family. They were sitting in a car. They didn't get out because they were so afraid. My brother is quite big.
Yeah,
but they just called me from the open window in the car, like, oh, well, there is this young gentleman sitting on the pavement here in Hatchend, and he said that I should call this number. And I cannot imagine how my brother could remember my phone number by heart, you know. I still don't understand that. Well, we picked him up, and once he returned, his eyes were absolutely clear, crystal clear. And I looked into his eyes and I told him, like, István, I will never ever close the door. You can leave whenever you want, but I can tell you that I have been assisting you with this for 12 years. And I truly believe that every situation, regardless how hard it is created by ourselves. And I know that you have got the power to come out of this. And if you are choosing to come out, I'm there for you, but otherwise I'm out of your life. And I think we really hit the rock bottom. And I actually told him, like, look, if you want to commit suicide, I'm okay with that. Suicide is just a choice, like other choices. And I do believe in past lives. So you are just going to start it new, you know, and we will meet in other lifetime, but I'm not playing this game anymore. Yeah.
So what happened after that? I'm just really riveted to this in this story. Like, what happened afterwards?
Well, the change started that time, I would say. He started to use the tools. So there are wearable tools as well, not just the access bars. And there is a very good book written by a Viennese clinical psychologist lady called Susanna Mittermeier. It's called Pragmatic Psychology. And I was using the tools from that book, and I taught him as well how to use them. Just asking questions like, who does this belong to? So if you have got a feeling coming up in you, it might be not your own feeling, but you might have picked it up from others. Because our brain works like a radio receiver. And if someone is very sensitive, like my brother, are just so aware, and they can pick up information for miles, you know. So you might have a headache, but you feel like it's your headache because it actually physically there for you, but it might be your neighbor's headache, or maybe you picked it up from somebody else when you were queuing in the shop, you know. We receive so much information that we are taking granted as ours, but it's not really ours. So with this simple tool, who does this belong to, you can just ask the question, and if your body gets lighter, that would be like, okay, it's not yours, because your body already receives like, oh, finally this person, finally my being, which is living inside me, because the body and the being are living together, right? It's a symbiosis. And our body is like an inner compass. And if you develop your muscles and your skills to tune into your intuition again and listen to your inner compass, you can use this tool to actually detect what belongs to you and what is not. So let's say that I have got a headache, or I woke up happy, and 5 minutes later I feel like really depressed. I would ask the question like, okay, truth, who does this belong to? And if my body feels a relief, a lightness, that means that it wasn't mine. I just picked it up as information from somebody. And I just say, okay, I'm returning back to sender. And I just imagine that from the core of my body, I push out everything from my aura and send it back to the people who I received the information from.
Okay, so just by asking the question, who does this belong to? There's a possibility to experience a lightness if it belongs to someone else, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens if it doesn't? What happens if it's yours? If it's like, you know, if you created it?
So if your body would contract and go heavy, it means it's yours, and you can ask further questions. Okay, truth, what is this? What can I do with this? What can I do with this? Can I change it? If so, how can I change it? And this is basically just a very few simple questions to start a dialogue with your body. And you might actually have some information popping up cognitively for you, or you are posting something in the shop and your body is just gonna draw you there because you need some vitamin D, I don't know, and you are gonna get something from the shop that contains vitamin D. But sometimes just by actually asking the questions, your body would start letting go whatever you are holding on to, because it can feel that you are willing to communicate.
So but the first thing you say, the first word you use is truth, yes?
Truth. Yeah.
Truth. So you're asking, you're asking what, a higher power, higher source, or truth, really? You know,
Yes.
what's the truth? Is this mine?
Yes. So basically, let me tell you an example. My brother used to feel that he had to go for a wee all the time, and he didn't have any physical problem with his bladder. And I told him about this tool. And one day he called me excitedly from Hungary, and he said, Eva, finally, I tried the tool that you recommended to me. I went to the toilet, there was nothing again. And I remembered, and I asked the question like, okay, truth, who does this belong to? And my brother is so aware. Actually, he visually saw the pictures of my mom, my grandma, my uncle, and my auntie. And really, all of these family members have got something going on with their bladder. Not necessarily physically, but psychologically. For example, my mom has got panic attacks and she cannot travel on public transport because she feels like she would need to wee and there is no toilet. So my brother is just so aware that he was gathering all of this information subconsciously and believed that it was his, and his body reacted that way, actually.
So what happened with your brother when he said that he asked that?
Since then, he doesn't have a problem with it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
I know people whose chronic disease or chronic problems and pain, ongoing problems for years, disappeared because of asking this question.
So my question would, does this work for everyone? Or it depends?
I think it does work for everyone, but sometimes you need to repeat it a lot.
Okay.
And some people cannot really feel the lightness or the heaviness straight away.
Okay.
So what I usually recommend people to how to practice it is just when you choose something to eat, hold it in your hand, hold the little ball in your hand and ask like, okay, truth, body, would you like to eat this? And just be present with your body, just feel whether something is changing in your sensations, whether you are getting lighter or heavier. If you are dressing up in the morning and you pick your blue jumper to put on, just hold it in your hand and just ask your body like, hey body, would you like to wear this today? And if your body contracts in any how, that's no. Maybe
like,
it's so funny. I know a lady who used to love strawberries. That was her favorite fruit, and she actually she was bloated all the time, and the doctors couldn't. She went for all kind of allergy tests and everything, and they just couldn't find the cause, And once she learned this tool, she started to use it, and she was checking with all the food she wanted to eat, and she said like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do it with the strawberry as well, And for her biggest surprise, her body absolutely contracted immediately when she asked the question. And after she stopped eating strawberries, and her bloatedness, which was a problem for years, was gone as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a muscle that you need to actually train. But once you get that lightness and heaviness feeling, once you experience how your body is actually saying yes or no, you can ask it in any situation to check it energetically. What would choice create for you?
What would choice create for you?
What would a choice create for you?
Give me.
I use it in different situations. For example, if I wanted to buy an item, I would ask like, okay, what does it create if I buy this? Is it going to contribute to my life? Or what does it create if I accept this job? Is it going to be a contribution to me? And basically, I check it energetically instead of just deciding from my mind.
So you're listening to your body either get lighter or contract or change.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you say everyone can do it, but I'm sure that only those that are really sensitive or perhaps are more sensitive would find this. Is that true, or do you think like you said anyone can do it, but
well, I would say that some people pick it up very quickly, very easily, and some people need to practice it for months. And it's not always lightness and heaviness. Some people would actually sway forward or backwards.
Okay.
Or they would rather have like a cognitive knowing, but it's not coming from their mind, but somehow it's like a download of yes or no for the question. I know people who still couldn't figure it out for them, so I'm not saying that it might be for like everybody, but most of the people who I know and they wanted to get in touch with their inner compass this way, they could develop it by time.
So with regards to your brother, I mean, he found this, the urine issue, he found that, so he must have been super excited. And so what else did he, after that, he must have like, okay, what else can I use this for? Was that how it went, or what?
Yes. For example, another day he called me again and he said like, well, we used to go, we went to town with mom, and as soon as we entered the supermarket, I had a panic attack coming onto me. And he said, I remember what you said again. And I asked the questions like, okay, truth, who does this belong to? Is it actually a panic attack, or am I just very aware here? And when he asked the question that whether he was really aware, he just got an immediate relief, you know. And
again, so he said firstly he said, who does this belong to? And the second question was,
he was asking, like, is it truth? Is this a panic attack, or am I just very aware of the information around me here?
oh, right, okay.
Because basically, if someone is oversensitive or an empath, that flood of information when you enter a crowd can actually feel like your brain, which is a radio station, is listening to many other radio stations, like a radio receiver, listening to lots of radio stations at the same time, and your brain becomes static, and it causes stress in you. But if you actually just get into the habit to check whether this wave that's coming up in you as emotion or feelings or even thoughts, and you would just question whether it's yours, like with mindfulness and meditation, you would realize that lots of things can be just let go, and they didn't even belong to you first place, and your space is just being cleared out.
Okay.
Yeah. I can tell you another example, which is really good, actually. Once I was about to travel to Hungary, and as soon as I stepped into the terminal in Luton, as I stepped into the crowd, I had this huge fear of coming up in me. And usually I'm very like fearless. I'm not somebody who would have like fear or panic attacks. And I didn't understand why it was, but it was so strong. And I had the feeling that there would be a bomb at the airport or on my plane, or there would be a terrorist attack or something. And it was so strong that actually I almost turned back and I almost came home. And then I remembered the tool, and I asked the question like, wait a second, truth, who does this belong to? And as soon as I asked the question, I had such a relief in my whole body, and I felt fine. And the information popped into my mind at the same time that it was just 1 week after the terrorist attack in Manchester. Do you remember that bomb at the concert?
Yeah. And it was just everyone's fear.
Yes. So basically, I entered the crowd, and as soon as I stepped into the crowd, I had that flood of information, the fear that basically was in the collective of those people.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah. Because we understand we're all connected, but to actually experience us being emotionally connected like that is really fascinating. And it's actually definitely, speaking with you, is beginning to change. I haven't heard it explained in the way that you have done. And I think it's amazing, what the information you're sharing with us. So the fact that, you can ask a question like that and experience a release will show you, okay, it's not even my fear that I'm sensing, it's someone else's fear. And that's hugely important.
It is. And tools like this basically help my brother overcome and regulate his condition, basically. So he uses this kind of tools every day.
And does he lead a normal life now? What does he do? Does he teach this, or does he do something else?
No, he learned access bars, and also my mom. So they still live together, and they exchange sessions with one another. But he works. So before access bars, he actually couldn't work. He was just home being depressed. And now he can lead an individual life, basically. So he drives around, and he works for an online company from home. He told me he doesn't want to move because he prefers village life. I think he's too aware of handling the situation in a big city.
Yeah, I think if he went to London, he would be overwhelmed with.
I think it was quite traumatic for him to come here the last time. So since then, he didn't visit me.
Yeah. But obviously, you've seen him, and so how old is he now?
33.
Right. Okay. So this happened. Yeah. So it's been a long journey.
Definitely has.
Yeah. But I think it's amazing that you've taken something that has really helped your brother, and now you're just sharing it. And for anyone that's interested in getting more information about this, tell them a little bit about what you do actually. So how do you work? How, do you work sort of via Zoom? Do you work face to face? Yeah.
Okay. Well, so basically, I'm based in Pinner in Northwest London. But with the Burnout Clinic, I practice in Moorgate once a week. So if someone wants to book in a private session, they can do on burnoutclinic.co.uk. And they can also find information about how Burnout Clinic provides sessions for corporates. Because our aim with my co-founder Erika, that we would like to spread it in the world on a bigger scale and take it into offices. So we offer session for big and small firms, which is like a mobile service. So basically, you can tell us like how many employees would you like to get treated in a day, and we would go in with our team and take our equipment. And you don't need to provide a separate room. But we can just pop up our reclining chair, and you can tell us whether they want to receive 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even an hour. So it's quite a flexible service that we offer, and for the companies. And also there are options for individual therapists as well, individual sessions.
I can imagine sort of communicating this to, let's say, a corporate executive or a MD might be quite challenging, at least initially. And I remember when I first met you, I think that was one of the main challenges you had, because, how do I communicate something as amazing as this, to someone who's perhaps stuck on the traditional path of, healing, or, in for medicine and hospitals. So how do you go about doing that?
Well, I still find it challenging.
Yeah.
But I have been doing it for 6 years in London, and I feel it has been quite a pioneer work, because it's still so unknown here. But I'm getting better at representing it and explaining it. And there are a couple of neuroscientific studies behind it, and what it shows that the level of anxiety, depression, and even physical pain can drop about 80% in a 90-minute session, which is pretty amazing. So, and what I see that actually since COVID, people opened up more for alternative techniques. And I'm just hoping that it took a little bit of time for mindfulness and yoga to get into companies and corporates, but they are inside now. So I think I just need to meet the people who are open-minded enough to try something new. And once they experience it, usually they are like hooked on.
Yeah, and usually, funny enough, it's always the businesses that are open-minded in doing business as well that would be open-minded in this kind of stuff as well.
Yes.
The ones that are sort of thought leaders in business, and have a new perspective on perhaps, transparency with financial accounts, transparency with a lot with salaries. It's those kind of companies that may perhaps, actually, what comes to mind initially is for me, actually, when I started my first business, I contacted the 100 best places to work for in the UK.
Oh, that's clever.
And actually, I think that would be something something that you could do as well, because usually in that Sunday Times list, you're going to have those kind of businesses that I think would be open to this kind of work. So those really sort of thought leaders, yeah, definitely. But
Because this is really amazing for innovations as well. So what access bars does really is declutters your hard drive if you think about your brain as a computer. So when you declutter your hard drive, there is space again, and you have got more ideas for innovations and everything really. So it just really boosts your performance in every ways. So it makes sense what you are saying.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And I wish you the best of luck on that journey. And you know, from what you've shared, it's very much needed. And it sounds like an incredibly powerful tool to let go. And it's different, you know. I have you're, I think, the fourth or fifth person I've interviewed so far. And you know, everyone has their unique way of letting go, and you know, they have a different modality of healing. And yeah, I really enjoyed speaking with you on this, so thank you so much, Eva. And so how do people get in touch with you?
Well, through the website, so it's burnoutclinic.co.uk. Or info@burnoutclinic.co.uk.
And I'm going to be posting the details below this podcast, so all of you can, you know, who are interested in this can contact Eva and have a session. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. It's been wonderful to have a chat with you, and at some point I'd love you to come back and perhaps tell us more about, you know, what you're doing and your continuing journey.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I enjoyed it as well.
My pleasure.